Here at Rock Island Auction Company, we are very fortunate to deal with the absolute best firearms in the world throughout history. Guns that are, one-offs, just a particular ornamentation, some with just this fantastic history. And that's what I have for you today. I've been fortunate enough to be here at Rock Island Auction for many years, but this rifle right here, as soon as I saw it come in, it really spoke to me as a hunter. And we're gonna get a little bit into the history of this rifle, who it was made for, what he used it for. But first I'm gonna talk just a little bit about the rifle itself before we get into that. What we have here is a Rigby best quality double rifle. You can see it's a hammer double rifle. And there's a few unique features on this rifle that I want to point out. And again, as we get into the history of it, we'll see why these unique features were put on here. But first one is just, we've got a peep sight on a double rifle. It's not something you see very often, but also we have this other rear sight that's very unique. And I'm going to show you that. Here you can see it's a graduated rear sight, something that we certainly see on rifles today, but it has this kind of unique almost button on the side here that will push through the various distances that the hunter wanted to shoot at, 100, 200, 300 yards. Very easy, very quick for him to maneuver between the different yardages. It's an exceptional quality given the fact that we know it was used on several very grueling hunts. It's just a beautiful rifle in and of itself, and a fantastic caliber, 450, 400. Certainly somebody could use this today. But as I said, this rifle has a history. This rifle was delivered to J.A. Jameson in May of 1882, who's better known as John Alloa Jameson, the grandson of John Jameson, who founded Jameson Whiskey. He was not involved with the business, with the whiskey business. Him and his brother spent most of their time as adventurers, as big game hunters, as naturalists around the world. Once John had grown up, he had spent many summers and early falls in the continental divide of the United States, primarily Montana and Wyoming, hunting the plentiful big game throughout the continental divide. And this happened between the years of 1875 and 1881, going back there almost every year. During that same time, John's brother James spent several years in Southeast Asia as a naturalist, identifying several new species of animals, including several of which are still named after him today. James also embarked on a year-long trek in Matabele land, which is in modern Zimbabwe, along with famed English hunter and explorer Frederick Courtenay Selous. Selous' recollection of their time together are published in his magnum opus writing, A Hunter's Wanderings in Africa. After James returned from the Dark Continent, he joined his brother John in his annual hunting trip to Montana, arriving in late July of 1882, according to the Helena Weekly Herald. The Herald stated that they would be setting up camp somewhere in the mountains near Deer Lodge or Butte, Montana. Also stating that their intended game was the almost ungettable Rocky Mountain goat, according to the Herald. The author of the article was also kind enough to recommend a few areas that he himself had seen large herds of goats along the mountainside peaks and ledges. Now, going back to the double rifle in front of me, the Rigby factory records say they delivered this rifle in May of 1882, just 2 months prior to the Jameson brothers arriving in Montana. This rifle was most certainly ordered by Mr. Jameson for him and his brothers' adventures in the Rocky Mountain West. Another article written by the Herald in October of that very same year stated that the two brothers had arrived in Helena just the day prior from their season's hunt with their trophies, including a dozen fine examples of the Rocky Mountain Bighorn. The article also mentioned John's trophies from his previous adventures in Montana, including buffalo, bear, moose, elk, lion wildcat, which I would assume would be a mountain lion, as well as sheep, goats, and many more. Next, it was John's turn to join James in one of his returns adventures, as the two of them joined Selous once again in Matabele land in 1887. While John spent over a year hunting the great beasts of Africa with Selous, James was convinced to join the Emin Pasha relief expedition despite John's protests. James had been convinced by the expedition leader, Captain Henry Morton Stanley. This expedition was meant to travel up the Congo in the hopes of assisting the besieged Egyptian governor of Equatoria, now in modern-day South Sudan. However, James would never return from this ill-fated expedition, dying of fever in August of 1888 while in the Congo. However, John Jameson and Selous' adventures would be detailed once again in Selous' writing of Travel and Adventure in Southeast Africa. Many years later, in 1910, at a meeting of the Shikar Club in London, which was co-founded by Selous, Jameson recollected their adventure in Africa, his brother's death, his regret in not hearing his brother's last words, and also came to the realization that Selous must have known at the time that it would be his last great adventure on the Dark Continent prior to the interference of Western colonialism. Selous himself became a big part of this colonialism as his knowledge of the land and the people became invaluable to his friend Cecil Rhodes, the founder of Diamond Company De Beers. However, Selous would have many other different types of adventures. He went on to fight for his native country in Africa during the First World War, despite being in his late 60s at the time. He was eventually shot and killed instantly by a German sniper while surveying the enemy positions. Selous is regarded as one of the first and greatest white hunters in Africa. His writings are considered almost required reading prior to any safari in Africa. The fact that the Jameson brothers, and possibly this double rifle in front of me, laid witness to the legacy and writings of Frederick Selous, as well as the adventure throughout Africa, untouched by modern society, is something that modern hunters can only dream about. However, Selous and the Jameson brothers, they lived that dream. This is your opportunity to extend the great history of this Rigby double rifle. We know that it saw many adventures in the hands of John Jameson, but this is an opportunity for the buyer of this great double rifle to take it on its next great adventure. And I hope whoever purchases it decides to do just that. Whether it's in the Rocky Mountain West of Montana, or Southeast Africa, or wherever you like to hunt throughout the world, I hope that you enjoy this rifle as much as John Jameson did in his adventures. And it's only available in our August premiere auction in Bedford, Texas.